One, two, three, I can say something, and it's a beautiful day. And,
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
I don't know about what, but hopefully it sounds good.
Well, I'm Karen, and is that enough?
My name is Jason.
My name is Karen.
I'm Jaap.
My name is Francesca.
My name is Menne.
I am 37 years old.
I'm 59 years old.
I'm 65 years old.
I'm 33.
Yes, I'm 42 years old.
I'm a lecturer in the tourism management program.
I'm a lecturer in psychology at the School for Social Work.
I work for the department OO&I, that's Education, Research and Internationalization, as a program manager for the honors program, program manager for IDARE, Inclusion, Diversity, Anti-Racism and Equity, and I'm the chair of the UPC, the University Participation Council.
I am a lecturer and student affairs coordinator at the tourism management program.
I'm a coach at Creative Business.
I guess I identify as a gay male. Don't know all the terminology these days, but...
I think sexuality is fluid, but right now I identify mostly as lesbian.
I identify myself as a gay. I live together with my partner. He's a man. But I think most of all I identify myself as Jaap.
I'm a bisexual woman.
I'm gay. Which already feels a bit weird to say like that, yeah.
I'm going to give you a little bit of context to understand a little bit better how things went. It was definitely the mid-90s, I think 1996 or so, and Ellen DeGeneres famously came out on her sitcom show, and shortly thereafter my mother came out of the closet. She left my father, got with a woman, and it was quite a big thing at the time, right? It obviously tore my family apart. My mom's side was pretty chill about it, but my father's side, they were very, if you weren't white, Polish, Catholic, and heterosexual, you were terrible. So that caused a huge schism in my family. We also had a lot of very small-minded friends. So, for example, a lot of my childhood friends were no longer able to come to my house because they thought my mother would have lesbian sex in front of them. So I was very aware, I was like 6 at the time, I was very aware of sexuality and kind of that this seemed to be maybe a bit taboo or whatever. But as most people, at least of that time, who come out later in life, my mom was in her late 30s, I believe. She wasn't just going to be a lesbian, she was going to be the lesbian, like the biggest lesbian. So we started doing all sorts of pride events. She took me to drag queen shows, drag king shows. So she really got deep into the community. And so you would think that eventually for me it was much easier. And when I was in middle school, I guess around 10, 11, I had a friend, we were two curious boys, and as two curious boys do, we fooled around and we decided, yep, this is great. We had a, relationship at 11 years old. And I decided, yeah, I have to come out to my mom's, because I had a second mom, her girlfriend at the time. And I actually came out to her. And I was still very nervous about it, but it was very easy. She's, Jason, we've known forever. It's just, I'm glad you finally have said it.
What's not really a very spectacular story. When I grew up in the 80s, people didn't really care about who was what kind of gender or orientation. So I knew a lot of people that were gay or lesbian or bisexual or whatever, and nobody really minded. So I did have some experiences then with girls, and somehow I don't really know how you should say that, but I'm also very impulsive. So I'm married twice with a man, and even though I really loved them, but I always knew there was more to life. So I think 13 years ago I started to use when I got divorced, I started to use a dating app. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to give this a serious try. And then very quickly I stumbled upon this really interesting lady. And we are together now for 13 years. So,
my father's side of the family was a lot more difficult. I actually never told, for example, my grandparents. They were too old world. It was like people from another planet, so it wasn't important. But I did tell my father. It took a lot of courage. Another thing I maybe forgot to mention actually in the beginning is that my father actually burnt my house down because he was angry that my mother had left him for a woman. So again, that made it a little bit more difficult for me to speak to him about it. And as you might be able to guess from that story, he was a raging alcoholic, so he actually would forget every time I came out to him. So I had to go through the process several times, and it was difficult at first, but at the end it was just like, okay, at this point it's just tiring, like you're never going to remember anyway. So did he know in the end? I don't really know, but with my mom's side I had tons of support. Things were really great. I luckily had a lot of good friends around me, and in terms of self-acceptance, I also definitely went through a period around that time where I wasn't quite sure about my own, I guess, gender. I did dress female quite often. I would go out in drag, and when I got older I actually worked briefly as a drag queen DJ at an all-female like pride dances that they would have. So I did have a long period of time going through that, but these days, I'll be honest, I'm too lazy to shave, even though I know there are bearded queens now, but I've kind of settled into whatever masculinity means for me, and here I am, out and proud.
You know, my mom was working in a hospital, and she had many colleagues, friends who came over to our places, and a lot of them, they were gay. And then, but you know, we did not address it like that specifically, but we knew, of course, there were female colleagues living together in a house, and also male colleagues living together, because it was very practical for the outside. At home, it was not an issue at all. So we all knew that they were having a relation and so on. And when I turned a bit older, I found out that the people around us, they were responding to these friends of my parents in a different way than I was used to. So that was, and then there was a moment that I discovered that I had the same feelings for, well, same-sex feelings, and then it emerged to me like, okay, does this mean that the other people don't like me as well?
So my coming out story wasn't that spectacular, because I wasn't in my teens when I was coming out. And when you're in your teens, you're very insecure, and you are even insecure about your hair and how you dress. So sexuality is then a really big thing. And so my coming out was like, oh, are you dating already? Yeah, I'm dating. Okay, what is his name? And then I said, her name is Natasha. And everybody said, oh, yeah, you could do that too. And I said, yeah. So actually there was no drama, there was no self-acceptance, because I've always accepted myself for who I am, and that just didn't stop when I came out. So yeah, it wasn't, it's really a very privileged story, I think. Not many people are not that lucky to come out like that.
And then at school, kids, in high school, kids called me, oh, you're gay, and I wasn't even aware of it, like, okay, why do they call me gay? And maybe even thinking, what does it mean? And then when I became a bit older, one of my classmates and I, we fell in love, one might say, and then, at home, party time, my mom saw me kissing my friend, and then we talked about it, and then, it was a very open discussion at home, and my parents said, well, do whatever you want to do and experiment, and if you want to talk about it, we are there to support you in everything that you're going to do. And I think my father passed away when I was very young. I was 24 years old. But until then, I think he was the most proudest father of having a gay son. So then he was telling it everywhere. So it was a good time, yes.
Technically, there's like 1,000 coming out stories, right? Because you're coming out all the time. Every person who doesn't know you, every person who meets you. I've also noticed a lot that, especially since I don't present particularly queer, I always have to over-explain myself, which can be a little bit frustrating at times. But you know, so there are about 1,000 coming out stories. The very first coming out I think I did in person was to my parents. And actually, my mother was very worried that I had suffered in silence for many years. I came out when I was 20. And my dad said, well, I should have guessed. And I was like, okay, sure, Dad, that's fine. They didn't have the best reaction at first. They were very uncomfortable. They were the typical people who are very open with other people's children being queer, but the moment that their only daughter was queer, it took them a moment. We come from a very small village in Italy. It's a very Catholic village, as the whole region is. So, you know, my parents are not particularly religious, but it's still the community's is a little bit, you know, it's very conservative, let's put it that way. So at first, you know, we had a bit of a moment, but then eventually they came around.
I think I knew that I like boys or men, but then boys more than girls when I was 12. But it took me a long time to come out. To come out as being gay. That was at my 17th year, and there was some kind of so I kept it for myself for a very long time. It feels like a very long time, although maybe coming out on your 17th is maybe normal. I don't know what normal is, but and then it felt like a roller coaster, because the first person I let them know that I was gay was one of my friends, one of my better friends, and that was through, I think it was called MSN, which was a chat application right then. And then that was the first person I came out to, and then I thought, well, this needs to happen all at once. So it really felt like a roller coaster. And then my parents were on vacation, and I didn't want to tell it during their vacation because that felt odd. But and there wasn't widespread internet like nowadays. So I told my sisters first, who were very supporting in that. But then there was a moment with my parents, and they were just back from vacation. They were all in the middle of their holiday stories and whatever and then I started crying and started talking about it. And then my mother was directly very supportive, and my dad was being quiet. And my dad is maybe more of a quiet man as well. So it also took a while or some weeks for my dad to accept something like that. And we lived, and my parents still do, in a pretty rural area in a small village. So they were also a little bit scared of how other people felt.
And every other coming out since then has been a lot easier. So I'm not too mad about that. And as for how I came to my own queerness, it's actually a little bit funny and maybe also a little bit sad for myself, because when I was 16, my very best friend, she came out to me. She told me, I have a girlfriend. I was like, oh my God, like that's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. It did not cross my mind whatsoever. I was like, hell yeah, I'm straight. Like, you know, and, you know, she has a girlfriend and I'm straight and it's all good and it's all fine. And then it was only like years later when I went to uni that I had my first crush, explicitly that I realized that I had a crush on a girl, and I was like, oh wait, women are also an option, other genders are also an option. And that was like a shocker. But I was thinking back, I was like, for 5 years I was surrounded by friends that were super queer. Like, I wasn't part of it, but there was a group that had a watch party of reruns of the L Word every week, and I was like, yeah, that's just not my thing, you know, good for them, but that's just not me. But I was like, girl, you were sleeping, but yeah, I got there eventually.
One day I was walking through the village, and then a car passed by with some people in it, and they opened up the window, or maybe it was automatic, I don't know, but they said gay or something like that. And that made me realize that it had passed, that information had passed, gossip had passed further than the people that I wanted it to be with. And that's when I decided, well, this is not the village there will probably be bullying or whatever. So then there was the roller coaster of moving here to Leeuwarden, where I already studied. And I wanted to move to Leeuwarden at some point anyway, but that moved it to a very much quicker, on a very much quicker pace than it was. So, like, I think within a month I moved to Leeuwarden. But what it did to me is, next to it being, I think, a very emotional part of, and also a very, I think, confusing period, because you come out to some people and you don't know what other people know, so it's also something like, yeah, do they know or don't they know? It also brought a lot of relief, and probably when I moved to Leeuwarden, but already when telling it to my parents and telling it to my sisters, it felt like it gave me room to breathe. It felt like, I think, well, maybe not the first time of understanding how it is to fully breathe, being able to absorb and everything. So it was the best decision of my life, of course. Yeah.
I know it might be a little cheesy, but it actually happened here at Stenden. One of the classes that I give are the it's now intercultural communication, it used to be intercultural sensitivity. And I always give also one workshop to the master's students. It's sadly usually the only time I see them. And we just talk about various intercultural concepts. And I always tell stories about my own life, my own family, and my husband is Dutch. So we have a lot of intercultural moments that are hilarious and always related to the topics in class. So I'm just sharing, and halfway through the class we're talking about, I think, cultural differences in education in your home country or even in just your level.
I think the moment that I felt proud, also that is not a very spectacular story. I never even thought about being proud or being ashamed. So it really, and I didn't experience any hardship. But I must say, not when I go to the Amsterdam Pride, but the Utrecht Pride. I was there, and it was such a gentle atmosphere, and I saw the boats come past, and then I really thought, oh, and it really dawned on me then, so I'm a part of the rainbow community. And then I thought, oh, this is really nice.
And I was just asking, what are some differences you guys are noticing being here now in the Netherlands? And a couple girls, one of them in particular, I think she was from Russia, and she said, I really want to say, like, I've never had a teacher mention sexuality, especially homosexuality, and the fact that you're standing here just telling the whole classroom about your husband, and that you're just chill about it, like, I just want you to know, like, I'm shocked, but like in the best possible way. This is how it should be, and I can't believe that this is happening, and it kind of actually gives me hope for like my own country. And I was really moved. I was like, I don't even think about it. I mean, yes, I'm always aware, you know, who can I talk to, what can I say, but here at Stenden, I'm like, I'm just going to tell you a story. This is my life, and this is my example. So to know that it was kind of such a special moment for some. I don't even know if this student was queer or not, but just to know that that kind of visibility really impacted them, like they were like on the verge of tears in class about this, and then therefore so was I. Yeah, I don't know, it really moved me, and I think about that a lot now when I do the intercultural stuff, that here I am also, without even saying it, kind of always having my sexuality at the forefront of a lot of my examples.
Actually, the question is a bit confusing to me, because I'd never experienced it. Like, is there a moment of being happy that I'm queer, gay, whatever? Because I am every day happy with who I am and what I can do, and that the people around me that are important for me, well, they don't know me in a different way. So I'm happy that I can be myself every day again. And if there are people who are not that happy with queer, gay people, LGBTIQ, whatever, then I do stand up and I address them like, okay, so, and not in this way I'm doing it now, but what's your problem? Yeah? So then why do you have a problem with this? And more, and I'd like to discuss it with them.
And also to see, because in many parts of the world there's a gender polarization. So a real man has got muscles and a real woman has got nails up to here and eyelashes and things like that. And I didn't grow up in that way, but I do really. I'm very proud of people, especially, for instance, in America. When I see people speaking out and taking action and rallying for other people in the rainbow community, I feel very proud, and that's also a reason why I decided to do this, because I thought, because for me it was so easy. It's good to realize that not everybody has the same luck.
And that makes me actually to the second layer of your question. That is that I feel so confident about who I am and what I am, that I'm very happy that I can support others who have more struggles in their life with being gay. So then, and I think that's what I think did almost my entire life. I told you in the beginning that there was this classmate, this boyfriend that I fell in love with, and he's coming from a family where we knew that his father would go crazy if he found out that his son was gay. And then my father offered, like, if you are going to tell at home that you are gay, I'm going to join you, because I don't want you to get in trouble. So then, and I think that's something I inherited from my father and my mom as well, to support and help others to accept themselves and who they are and what they are.
When I was with my previous partner, we were walking together through the streets of Venice, and we were just holding hand, just going about our day. And at some point we were just, seated down, we were just having lunch, and of course we weren't holding hands while we were eating, we were just chatting away, and there was another two girls. They were very, very young. I don't think they were older than maybe 13 or 14. They were also kind of near-ish us, and they were also just talking and eating and just minding their own business.
What I do think is that showing part of my personality, of who I am, helps other people also being okay with their own identity, and that's also part, I think, why I enjoy working at school, working at university at this moment, and I do this now for almost 4 years. But I think in some way, showing who you are and being comfortable with yourself helps people that aren't sure of themselves, and that makes me proud. And when I'm thinking of, I think we're now, this is for coming out day, but there's also Purple Friday, Paarse Vrijdag, and that's also why I thought, well, I'll just wear a purple sweater.
And then at some point, me and my girlfriend, we held hands, we just exchanged a kiss, and then we could see the two other girls going a little bit like that with their, with their eyes, and then they also held hands and exchanged a kiss, and it was so beautiful and so precious that they felt like, oh, we're not the only ones here, and that they felt felt comfortable as well. So that was very sweet.
When I see people that aren't part of the LGBTQI+ community, but that do wear purple on that day because they want to support the people around them, that gives me pride. That makes me think like, okay, there are people that find it equally as important as we do ourselves to be able to show that identity.
Yeah, I found this a bit of a difficult question to think about because, indeed, especially my own identity, I don't think too much about it. But in terms of the experience, I would say particularly right now, there's a lot more visibility. I've obviously just told you about how I'm comfortable sharing in class, but things are shifting and not in a great way. And I think we forget that within the community, but especially outside of the community. So even in a place like the Netherlands, first country to legalize same-sex marriage, we feel pretty safe here. But for example, my husband and I don't hold hands in Leeuwarden. We're not comfortable enough. And we've had people say things. Never any problems, luckily, but why do I want to put myself through that? And I mean, as I'm sitting here talking to you, the United States is literally reviewing bringing back, conversion therapy, and all signs, there's basically no doubt it's going to pass. That's wild. That is so shocking. So I think people forget that we're still very marginalized.
When I introduce myself immediately to new people as married to a woman, I feel that there are certain assumptions being made. For instance, once I said when my son was a little younger, he was dating a lot of women in a very speedy process. And then I said something about that. And the guys at my table were like, oh, that's probably because you are only seeing women. This is really what a guy should be like, And if it seems like use him and abuse him, or he wasn't really doing that, but really going through many very short-term relationships, well, this is what men do. And you don't know that because you've always been around women.
And I think our straight allies forget that they're not important, they're essential. We are a minority. Without their support, we can't kind of overcome these things. And we see how many celebrities who are allies kind of just disappearing when these issues come up. So I think just keeping dialogues going and realizing that even in 2025, when things feel a lot more comfortable, at least for me personally, I feel a lot that there is a shift happening. Even here at school sometimes I feel there's a little bit of a different vibe in a classroom. I'm not going to say it's bad yet, but I'm feeling like this is one of the last safe spaces, the university, and I think we just need to be really aware for the whole queer experience, and especially right now, the trans part of our community, because even though we are a LGBTQ+ community, it's a very divided community, and I think a lot of people outside of the community don't realize how much injustice and prejudice is within our own community, and that does make me sad. So I hope things like this can kind of start getting those dialogues going, breaking down some of that, and just remembering that we still have a lot to protect, never mind advance, but just protect at the moment.
What happened a few times is that people asked me, so how did you like the Eurosong Contest Festival? And I have to say I hate it, so I never watch it. And
then I thought, and I defended myself even by saying, well, I've been married to a guy twice, what are you talking about? And I thought, why are people assuming that I don't understand men? Or when I say something judgmental about a one man, then I'm attacking all men. And so I do feel that some men are making some assumptions as that I'm hating all men, and maybe I didn't have enough experiences with real men, or things like that. And I think that is I thought it was funny at the time, and now I realize it actually is not really that funny, because when you're not assertive, you just get misunderstood, and that's then the end of it. So,
there's this idea of the concept of this Eurovision Song Contest is a gay thing or something, and therefore, well, you're gay, so you must like it. Well, I don't. I hate it. So then I ignored it completely. So then it's, yeah. Well, so.
To be honest, the fact that I am bisexual, I always call myself a very kind of like a disproportionate bisexual, in the sense that, I mean, for the past, how many years? I don't know, 12, 13 years. I've only been dating either women or non-binary people. Not that many, like cis men have been in my orbit. But that means that I get called a lesbian every time, which I take zero offense in. But sure, like that's absolutely not an insult.
So I think here in the Netherlands, we think that we are a tolerant country and a respectful country and all of that. And I think for a large part that is true as well. But there's also the not so respectful, or because we still need to come out, and that's that is an issue, and that should not be necessary. And now people saying that it's not necessary to celebrate because we are already a very tolerant question. They aren't aware of the fight that is which sounds strong, but which is still going on, and that internal fight that you're also busy with.
But I do also find it important that my actual identity gets recognized. I am a bisexual woman, and so often I have to explain that, yeah, that's who I am.
You're not coming out once, and that's what I experienced, because I thought when I came out to my family and my friends, then I thought, well, this is fantastic. But then I got my first. Well, then I was at school here, so I also needed to come out at school. But every new person that you meet, you need to kind of come out to, and that costs energy as well, and that costs a lot of brain power as well on how to handle those things.
I was in middle school, as I said, kind of during that whole phase. I think 6th grade in the US, 10, 11 years old. And we basically also had study coaches, kind of like we do here, who was responsible for a group of students. And mine took me and my group together early in the year, and they told us, hey, I need you guys to know that I am about to live my life as a woman. I'm going to transition, and I want to talk to you all because I don't want you to be scared. I don't want you to think it's weird that I'm suddenly coming to class in dresses and wearing makeup, and this, that, and the other. If you have questions, of course, please ask. I want you guys, I don't want this to be a traumatizing thing, really. And here we are, a group of 10, 11-year-olds. And what really shocked, well, looking back, what really shocked me is all of us were just like, yeah, great, amazing. Why do you even need to sit and talk to us about this? You live your life, like, great. And in fact, he was going to stay with his wife. They were going to be a lesbian couple. Amazing. But the parents had a lot of issues. And not too long after, they were gone. We never found out what happened. They lost the job. And it really is impactful to me to think back that, okay, a group of 10 and 11-year-olds couldn't care less about this, right? Especially given everything going on right now with trans issues. Like, yeah, kids don't care because it's not a difficult concept, and it's not, at the end of the day, it's not an important concept. Just like, okay, this person's gonna wear a dress. Does that affect my life? No.
Well, I do think if I would have had more role models at school, or people that would be more overtly, because the teachers at my school, they were of course older, and they were born, because I was young in the 80s and they were young in, I don't know when they were young, but anyway, they were raised in another time, and these people seemed to all be straight. And so there weren't really that many role models for women, especially. I think even men would, in those days, would have more role models in a school.
I found out so many of my teachers were queer growing up, and I wish I had known more. It might have helped me on my journey, but I do think it's really important. And I think I was lucky enough to have that trans experience, my guidance counselor. I don't know if I would have called them role models at the time, but they definitely gave me awareness and made me realize that there are people around me in this community that luckily I had a lot of early exposure to.
When I'm thinking back of my high school, let's start there. I don't recall any teacher being gay, lesbian, queer at all. And you know, it was quite, I think, well, there were a lot of students and teachers, but then I do not recall anything about it. So, and in hindsight, well, I didn't miss it at that time, but maybe I think it would have been nice if there was something like what we have in the Netherlands, the Gay Straight Alliance organization, something back in the days.
But for me, the role models were rock artists and people like that, or people who were really free with themselves. So mainly people the same age as me or a little bit older, but not at school, no.
And I think it's a good thing that we spend maybe a bit more time on having this diversity in the teacher, the staff members and teachers, but also in the educational materials that we use, the books, the literature, the examples. Well, pay a bit more attention to the diversity. So then that's a good thing to do.
Actually, I don't remember teachers being explicitly queer in any way, shape or form, but unfortunately I remember how much conversation there was around teachers that were rumored to be queer in one way or another. That there was a lot of, rumors from the students, from the parents, from other teachers. And actually that's something that for a long time kind of put it in my head that it was a bit of a, that it was a bit of an unpleasant secret, that it was a little bit of, something unsavory, that it was best not to talk about.
So at secondary school, I had a gay teacher who he was my teacher for English. And there was like a week when there was attention to, not only sexual orientation, but sexual growth, or I don't know how they would call that in English. And I was thinking, is that a role model to me? And at that moment, he wasn't a role model to me, and it feels maybe wrong to say, but there was like that. There was an age difference through which I couldn't really see him as a role model, and although I found it courageous what he did, because he was explaining about what it meant for him to a lot of straight kids and me.
Actually, I had a little bit of the opposite. I never saw queer role models in an academic setting. It was a little bit better once I went to uni, but I never had any teachers, lecturers, professors, anything like that were openly queer. Not at all. And I would have liked that a lot, because it was a very, let's just say that school was made for me. I was the type of student that really thrived in the school system. So I was, I always felt very at home. I loved being in school. I loved having a good relationship with my teachers and impressing them and all of that. And it would have been so important for me to have seen that, especially because I resonated so much with the school environment. But the whole time I was kind of taught that was not a place for queer people, and actually that it was inappropriate for children to be around queer people. So that was I had quite a bit of an inner fight inside myself because of that. That was a long discussion that I had with myself.
I think it would have been different if that person would have been younger, maybe. Then the age gap wasn't that big, and I could maybe more in a better way identify myself with that person. So I think you also need to be lucky to have a role model in your life. I do remember that it wasn't a teacher, but there was a TV personality called Carlo Boshart. He's still there. He's a Dutch gay man, and then he presented Telekids, and he was very young. He was, I think, open about his sexuality, but he spoke to a very big public. He was presenting a television show for children, and everybody adored him. And at that moment, I did think like, okay, he's. There are people that can love a gay person, and he's much more than he's much more than only that part of his personality. So I think that was at that moment a role model to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't deny that, definitely. I'm obviously very sensitive to just diversity in general, in the classroom. I will admit these days, and we always joke in Europe, right? Everyone's gay, we can't tell. So, I mean, my gaydar is a little off, but a lot of students do approach me specifically for queerness. I've had students who have even come out to me, you know, kind of as the first person, or yeah, and I tend to be study coach for, I don't know if they pair us on purpose or what, but we get a lot. And I find that they kind of seek me out. I don't know, you know, like I guess they see that I'm a safe space and things are very comforting. So I like to have these dialogues. I like to make sure it's known in class that we can talk about these topics, obviously by sharing them myself. But I just think in general, yeah, I have a much more heightened sensitivity to diversity, adversity, and I try to make sure that in a classroom where maybe there aren't so many people, or I just like to indeed know that there's visibility for the students.
Yeah, I think it mainly opened my eyes to this problem, really, that especially transgender people are discriminated in a totally more hateful and radical manner than people that are just lesbian or gay.
We have a lot of students from conservative countries, and most of them are the ones who indeed are the ones coming out for the first time, and being here and having the chance to do that. I feel so privileged to at least be a small part of that. So I always want to be there to encourage and just make sure they know that those things are not only possible, but like encouraged and accepted, and it's safe here. And so I try to be a safe space, if I could sum that up. Yeah, it really affects me because I try to make sure people know that there is support.
If you're part of a minority, you're always aware of the fact that you have to maybe make an extra step or go for the extra mile, because you have to prove that you're as valuable as the majority, whatever determines what the majority is then. And well, being aware of that, I think that the way I teach and the way I coach and the way I support students is with this in mind, and always pointing out, you know, be aware of this, and if you want to be taken serious, maybe you have to do the extra mile, and therefore take your time and do it. And so that's something that I've learned from being queer and positioning yourself in society, in your classroom, in your work, and in your professional position. So then,
and I even Caroline van der Plas, she's a politician in our country for the BBB, the Farmer Party, and she said, well, the LG is all right, but all the other letters of the alphabet are ridiculous. That's just foolishness, she said. And I do feel that I've become more sensitive to that problem of mainly transgenders. Protect the dolls, that's what I say.
And there's intersectionality, of course, coming in place with maybe people who are LGBTIQ and maybe female and maybe have a skin color. So then all these things, they come together. So as long as you deviate from the majority, you have to be aware of making this extra step to maybe taken serious.
So for me, being queer myself has really taught me to not make any assumption about students, and to also give them time and room to express themselves. So to kind of come into who they are, and also knowing that that's always subject to change. So that for me, the important thing is that to always create that space for them where, you know, they tell me who they are, when, if they want, with regards to everything, by the way, not even just necessarily about their gender identity or sexual identity, but in any regards to them. I am there to listen, to welcome, to understand, even things that are different from me. Even if there are things that at first I'm like, oh, I'm not sure how to deal with that, then I'll take my time, I'll educate myself, and I will support them, you know, as best as I can, or will direct them to people that can support them better.
And I also try to, if we have different opinions, to try to listen what the reasons are when someone has different opinions about whatever, about me being gay or things like that.
And I think that sometimes that's one of the pitfalls that we fall into, especially when we mentor or when we coach, that we think that students owe us information, and they never do. So, and that's also something that I had to go through, having, you know, educational figures that thought I owed them information, especially indeed when it came to personal elements. And I'm like, no, that's never the case. I'm here to receive. This is for them. It's not for me. So that is always my kind of golden rule when coaching and teaching. Yeah.
I try to be as open as possible. And I think that is a skill because of my personality and because I'm part of a minority. And I think it's important, and I think a lot of coaches, without them being part of a minority, also have developed those skills. But I think it maybe is more natural if you're part of a minority, if that makes sense.
I think don't underestimate the importance of your friends and chosen family, because there is always support. As I told you, my story was very different depending on which side of my family and friends and all that sort of stuff too.
Gather safe people around you. Gather a group of safe people around you where you can be yourself, be honest, and just don't put yourself in danger.
The only thing I can say for certain is if you're here, if you're at Stenden, if you're a student, you can definitely always come to me. If you want me to be your first, if you want to try it on me, or if you want to just have a discussion about how you're feeling about it, all I can offer is advice. It's always different for everyone, so there's no blanket, hey, do this, it'll be easier. But sometimes just having a conversation with someone who's been through it, or a little older and wiser perhaps, can be useful. So hey, you know, you can always come to me, seek me out if that's something you are struggling with. So I can definitely give support.
So it's not that, well, one day I woke up and then I decided I'm gay. So that's not, so you're struggling already for a longer time. And if you're still the only one who knows, well, and then there's, well, you need more time to first accept yourself as who you are, and don't be afraid of being that.
So I would first start to see around you who is safe, who is accepting, who is supportive, and especially when you're young and very insecure about everything, your safety is most important.
And then the next step is try to find allies, people who you trust, and share your feelings with them. And maybe sometimes, you know, these are the unexpected friends who you can share this with.
First of all, I would say consider your circumstances. Very simply put, who is it safe for you to talk to and who isn't? Who are you, basically whose reaction are you maybe afraid of? And it can be that you're afraid in terms of, like, you know, more emotions and reactions of being rejected, of not being accepted. But there's also the very practical side of, Is it safe for me to come out, for example, to the people that give me food and shelter? So always take stock of your circumstances.
It also depends on the context where you as a student, where you're part of. And I can imagine that it's very difficult to come out, and you should always choose your own moment. So that's also why the moment of coming out day is, I think, a difficult concept, and but I think it's important to pay attention to it and to think, is this the moment that I want to come out, or do I choose whatever moment?
And sometimes it can be really, really hard in that moment, but it's also good to remember that some of those circumstances are hopefully temporary. That if you're maybe in an environment that is not super safe for you, then maybe in a year or two or later on, you will be independent. You will be living by yourself. You will have your own space in your own community. So always consider your circumstances. And even if maybe in that moment it's not safe with some of the people around you, hopefully there are also people that are safe, maybe friends or people in your community, or perhaps maybe even a queer teacher that you know of, that that can already give you that emotional space. And then hopefully we can build towards also other types of safety. But always consider your circumstances and stay safe.
Realize that when you do come out, that it will not be the last time that you come out. So what helped me was being very open to it afterwards, but it also took me some years of discovering and understanding. Let's do this right from the start and make this as unawkward as possible. If you have that possibility, I would choose to do that.